Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Shelley Speaks Truth right here on TooRawForTV.tv. If you are here for the first time, welcome, and I hope that you do enjoy tonight's show. We are streaming from a few other platforms, which I believe is X, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, possibly. But that will not be for the entire show. If you would like to see the entire show, you will have to come on over to 2rawfortv.tv, and that is where you will see the entirety of the show. That is the number 2, raw, the number 4, TV.tv. All right. And as many of you may know, I am your host, Shelly, here along with my co host, Dre. And again, welcome and thank you for tuning in tonight. We have a pretty jam packed show tonight, and I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. Now, you've probably seen everywhere, all over, various social media platforms. People are talking about the Jeffrey Epstein case pretty much being wrapped up and closed, the investigation being closed, and everything coming to an end. And there are a lot of angry and upset people because people that have been following the Epstein case, they were expecting, much more than what became of that case. Now, I haven't really been keeping up with the Epstein case as of late because, that's something that happened a while ago. It's been years now, and I guess it was still being investigated. People wanted to know how he really passed. Was it really suicide? So an investigation was launched. And one of the things that were being widely talked about in this entire situation is this client list that, was said to have lots of powerful people on the list. It was being reported that this list consisted of people that he planned to blackmail and things like that. So, quite naturally, the general public became very drawn to this because there were so many high profile people that were being mentioned in this particular case. One being our very own president, Donald Trump, who was had dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not too sure if they were friends, but they definitely were running in some of the same circles and things like that. So, speculation really began to surround around the so-called client list that was supposed to be getting released as part of this investigation. Now, some people are saying that people are overreacting because there was never going to be a list released in this investigation. But I personally feel like the Trump administration kind of overplayed their hand in this situation because when he was running for president, he was asked on numerous occasions, would he release the Epstein files and things like that? And he pretty much said yes, he would have no problem releasing the files and, the so-called lists that everyone's talking about. So I personally feel like he put himself in a position where people were counting on him to deliver some form of transparency in this situation. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people really don't understand how these things work. Depending on who's on that list, and if there is a client list, which a lot of people believe that there is, because there has been people within the, Trump's administration, the deputy FBI director, the head of the Department of Justice, saying things like, there's a list. And so, quite naturally, people are going to say, okay, well, where is this list that we were promised would be released as part of this investigation? And the MAGA crowd is very pissed off. they feel like they were lied to. They feel like there's a cover up going on. Some people have even went as far as to say they feel like Trump buried that list because he's on it. So there is a lot of anger and speculation around this list. And this is a pretty this is a big deal. This is a big deal because of the type of case that this is, or was, I should say, where you had a guy who had some secluded island that he was using to sexually assault underage girls. So this is not a situation where it's not something that people should be concerned about, because it's something that people should definitely be concerned about, because it's involving the harming of children. And supposedly there's high profile people within our government, high profile celebrities and things like that, that have been mentioned in this particular case. And people are really wanting to know who was on that list, and what the hell exactly was happening on this island with children. And rightfully so. If you this, like I said, this case in particular, because that's what this is all about, this case is a very big deal. Again, we're talking about children being harmed by these people. So I don't know how many people remember during COVID, when they really ramped up the fact checkers and flagging things as misinformation and things like that. There was something that lasted about, I want to say, I don't even think it was a whole day on Facebook, where there was a hashtag, and if you clicked on the hashtag, it would open up different sources and things like that, where they were talking about sex trafficking involving children. And again, like I said, that didn't even last a day on Facebook. It got flagged and fact checked and things like that. But again, there was this whole big thing with Hillary Clinton and the Clintons and people like that, people of that caliber. So for me personally, it would make sense that if those types of people were on that list, that the list would get buried, because what would that mean for this country if it came out and it was exposed that people in our government and things like that were in fact complicit in these types of things happening to children, whether they were actively involved or knew of it and didn't say anything. So again, this is a pretty big deal. This is a serious situation. And it's being pawned off as conspiracy theories and things like that, but you have a situation where it's starting to look like a cover up to me personally, because again, you had Pam Bondi, I believe that's her name, who's the head of the DOJ. And then this other guy, his name is escaping me right now, but he's the deputy FBI director. They were very adamant about, being very transparent about what was going on with this case. And they did say that they would release, information that would, pretty much expose what happened in this case. And unfortunately, that did not happen.
Well, we got a video there, don't we?
Yeah, we do have some videos. We're going to get to the videos in a second. As a matter of fact, we can go ahead and get to that video now, but let me go ahead and do something right quick, because I kind of want to play them in the order that I want to discuss them. So I believe the first one is Pam Bondi, and she's being questioned about the file. So you guys don't have to take my word for it. We can go ahead and play the video, and you can see, what they were saying as it relates to the case.
All right, let me just want to bring this video up real quick.
Yeah, that one is. I know I sent it to you.
Yeah, alright, I got it right here. If I can get it to play, it'll be alright.
His clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you. The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey.
It was weird.
It was weird because she said that she was looking at the she had the list on her desk. But the thing for me, the question he asked was loaded, right? Because the question he asked was the client list, right? He specifically asked about the client list, and so she specifically answered about the client list. Said it was on her desk. Right. So for there to be now everybody saying that there's no client list, and I'm one of the ones that say that hey, there's probably not a client list because who the hell writes down a list of the people that they're doing illegal activities with? Like who does that, right? Unless you're trying to set people up. I mean,
that's one of the other things that people are saying. He disappeared because that list wasn't just a client list, it was a blackmail list. So, it was something similar to what people were saying with the Diddy situation. Diddy had cameras all over his house, all over his various homes, and he had, pretty incriminating information on some pretty powerful people within our society, and we see what's happening to him. Fortunately, he's still here. He hasn't committed suicide or anything like that, but they're raking him over the coals, and by no means do I think that he's an innocent person. I believe that he's done some horrible things in his life, but I don't know if it's to the extent that is being reported, but this isn't about Diddy, but I'm using him as an example of someone who's in a similar situation where he had all these videos and cameras and things like that in his home that I'm sure had information on it that was incriminating and damaging to, like I said, pretty powerful people in our society. And if my memory serves me correctly, I believe Donald Trump alluded to that as well. He didn't say it in the exact terms that I said it, but he definitely hinted at the fact that people would be destroyed by those files. And at the end of the day, I really just don't see, although we would like to believe that there's some people within this government at that level. This isn't your local government. This is the federal government of the United States of America. Like, this isn't some small town government. This is the federal government. And I really just don't foresee anybody in that level of government coming out with a list, even if it does exist, saying, hey, this is the list of people that were assaulting children in our government. What's the possibility of that really happening? I don't really foresee that ever happening. Not under this current systems that we live under. I mean, like I said, one would hope that people would have some type of morals and, compassion and things like that to expose this stuff because it's horrible. But again, these people, they're not going to expose themselves. And I guess it's kind of naive for people to believe that they would do it. I think that the Maga crowd, a lot of them, although they're conspiracy theorists and they're they're digging deep and they think they're in the rabbit hole. But a lot of people just have no idea how deep the rabbit hole is. And, it's things that you really couldn't possibly fathom. So for me, it's a situation like there's not really anything that people can tell me that would surprise me because I'm very aware of how things work. But it's just very disheartening, I would say, that these things are going on. And it doesn't appear that there's anyone courageous enough to really just expose what these people are doing. Donald Trump doesn't have the courage to do it. I know his base, and his supporters and his worshipers felt like Don was going to get the job done. Donald Trump isn't going to be the one that's going to do that. And I know people probably don't want to hear that, his supporters, because they had a lot of faith in him. They had a lot of faith in the fact that he was going to come in and drain the swamp and get all the corruption out. But he obviously does not have the courage to do that. And I think people are going to have to begin to come to terms with the fact that these people that they thought was some type of beacon of hope, they're not going to go against these individuals that are part of these elite societies that tell governments what to do. So it's kind of like, where do people think this is going to go? I guess is the question that I'm trying to pose here. What do people think is really going to be the outcome of this situation? Do they think they're going to get transparency to that extent from the President of the United States? I personally just don't foresee that happening. And anything is possible. I mean, could the people put enough pressure on him for him to go ahead and just say, okay, I'm going to release the file or the list or whatever it may be? Well, because here's the thing. Like I was saying before, I feel like Trump was very strategic when he was running for president, both times, but really this time around. And he really played on the emotions of the everyday rank and file person in American society on the Republican end. Because he made it seem like he was down with the common man. That's what he did. And honestly, that's not the case. This man is a billionaire, okay? He's in the elite levels of society. He can't relate to the everyday common person. He just can't. But he had a lot of people believing that he could. And they believed that he had some type of, I guess, camaraderie with them. But he was trying to win an election at the end of the day. So he said a lot of things that he probably doesn't have any plans on actually delivering. And I can understand people feeling deceived and feeling betrayed behind thinking that he was going to come in and do these things that he said he would do. And unfortunately, as they can see, it's not really panning out that way because politicians, even though Trump isn't a traditional politician, he's been in politics for a little bit of time now, to where he kind of fell in line with the political structure. And I know that's hard for some people to accept, but again, the everyday rank and file American who supports the Republicans or whatever political party, you're going to have to come to terms with the fact that these people are not you. They don't live like you. They don't think like you. They're just not you. They're far removed from the everyday person. And that's just the reality of what it is. So, again, I do feel like it was kind of naive of the people to believe that there was going to be some big time conspiracy being exposed. Like, that's not going to come from the federal government. at the end of the day, I just, like I said, I don't foresee that happening. I do not believe that the federal government is going to be the one to blow this case wide open. They have individuals who lurk in the shadows, hence the term shadow government, that they have to answer to. And, unless somebody's willing to go all the way for the people, then that's the only way that, these things are going to come to the light. And I mean, what's your thoughts on this before I go any further?
Yeah, my thoughts on this: don't expect nothing; you won't be ever disappointed. I literally, I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but if you go through life with no expectations, you can never get into disappointment ever.
Yeah, but it's kind of hard for people to not have expectations.
Life is hard.
Life is tremendously hard, but it's kind of hard for people not to have expectations, especially for people who they believe in. Like, you have some people in the Maga crowd that just wholeheartedly believe in Donald Trump, like almost like a savior complex they have with this man. So quite naturally, they're furious that the person that they thought was on their side, on their team, and was going to, blow this conspiracy out the water, didn't do what he said he was going to do.
Listen, a conspiracy is always going to be a conspiracy until it's not.
Facts.
So
there was plenty of things that were I mean, they're just now releasing stuff from the 60s, the Kennedy files, and so maybe in another 60 years, when most of us probably won't even be here anymore, the files will get released when it really doesn't make any difference in the atmosphere about what happened back in 2025 and the year 2070. You know what I'm saying? So
here's and I might get backlash. Who cares? I'll probably get backlash. Who cares? I kind of feel like Trump.
Feel like Trump in what regard?
We're still talking about this, right? And the reason why I feel like that is because when is the conversation going to lead to the little missing girl in the neighborhood? Like, we're talking about a dead guy and his cronies in upper government, right? And I'm not talking like you, right? Because this is just a topic of the day, so this is what we're talking about, right? But like the world, the media, right? Like, this is what. When is the conversation going to lead to the little girl that went missing last night?
This all ties into that because we're talking about the harming of children. We're talking about sex trafficking and things like that involving kids.
Right. To me,
that's what this case is about.
Right. But what I hear about the conversation is Epstein, Trump, Epstein, Trump, Epstein. There's a little girl went missing last night in the hood somewhere.
True, but I get where you're going with that, and I understand. But this situation is a big deal, and that's why I'm talking about it. It goes beyond Epstein. We're talking about people in our government committing crimes against children. Not just crimes against vulnerable children. That is a big deal.
Listen, I'm not saying it's a big deal. It's not a big deal. What my thing is, where does the conversation go?
Trump, we need to move on from Epstein because, as far as we know, Epstein took himself out, which I don't believe that, but that's what the story is, and we don't have any proof that he didn't. So he took himself out. Trump, when are you going to step up to the podium and start talking about cracking down on crimes against children in this country. You are not trying to, you're trying to brush this Epstein thing under the rug, pretending like you don't know this is part of a way larger conspiracy than just one man. And that's what his base is pissed off about too. I'm not saying his base is wrong for being angry. They have every right to be angry because this is a big deal. This goes beyond Epstein. And they don't want Ghislaine Maxwell to testify or speak, even though she's still alive and breathing, because I'm sure she has a lot to say about this. They want to bury this case because it will implicate high-profile people committing heinous crimes against children. And that is just the bottom line about what is going on here. And nobody wants to talk about this. Listen, I remember during the pandemic when we all were at home and really couldn't go anywhere. I mean, unless you were in Florida, you could pretty much go wherever you wanted to go. Thank God we were in Florida at the time. But anyway, people were locked in their homes and couldn't really go anywhere. Stores closed down and blah, blah, blah. So everybody was online. And there was a lot of things coming out. I used to watch a show hosted by Young Pharaoh. And he was going in at the time. You know, YouTube was a different world. This was before all the flagging and you can't talk about this and that.
That was a Trump-Hillary election you're talking.
This was after that. This was during the pandemic.
Okay.
It didn't last very long during the pandemic. All those channels where all that saying whatever you want to say, that got shut down during the pandemic. But before it got shut down, I remember he had a show where he was talking about Hillary Clinton. Because she had, listen, Hillary Clinton was on the forefront for a minute because of her laptop that Trump was talking about during his first election. When he kept calling her Crooked Hillary and all this. And they were talking about her laptop and how things ended up getting deleted and files missing, never to be seen or heard from again. And I remember on this particular show with Young Pharaoh, he was reading an article about a low-level officer. I think he might have been a sheriff or something like that. He was pretty high up in the police department, but he wasn't like a FBI or anything like that. But he saw what was on Hillary Clinton's laptop. And he said that what he saw pretty much made him sick to his stomach, and he was going to talk about it. That man ended up dead in his car, shot in the back of his head, and they said he committed suicide. But he was shot in the back of the head. I will never forget that. He said that if they didn't bring that information to light, he would do it. He's no longer here with us.
Can't do it now.
And maybe that's what other people are afraid. I mean, not maybe. I'm pretty sure people feel like, okay, I know what I saw and I know what I know. But if I speak on it, forget speaking on it. Will I even get a chance to speak on it? Because...
Well, that brings up an interesting question. Does that mean that Trump is in survival mode right now?
I believe that he is. That's why I can't necessarily 100% blame him knowing the things that I know. I know Trump is not in control.
I mean, The Simpsons predicted that he had been murdered by now. Simpsons ain't too much wrong.
Trump is not in control to the extent that people think that. People who don't know, and I'm not trying to make it appear that I'm some know-it-all, but I know what I know. And people who know what I know, they know Trump is not as powerful or in charge to the extent that people thinks that he is. So again, that's another thing that fuels their anger, because they thought that he had power that he doesn't really have. But at the end of the day, people do have power over themselves. You can speak if you find the courage to do so. And that's something that no one can take away from you unless they get to you and take you out of here before you get a chance to speak. But at the end of the day, if he wanted to say something, if he had the courage to say something, he could do it. Who could stop him? But at the same time, like you said, he's more than likely in survival mode right now because he can't run for president anymore. So it's not like he has any admiration to play on his base again because he can't run for president anymore. So he probably feels like, listen, these people ain't gonna do nothing for me. I gotta preserve my own life or whatever the case may be. That's a rational thought. But again...
So you're not with the crowd that says that Trump and Epstein was really the runners of this child molestation ring?
Listen. These people are corrupt beyond what a lot of people can even perceive, right? So anything is possible. He very well could have been involved to some degree. It's very much a possibility that he could have been. And that's the other side of it. He could be covering his own ass. We don't know. And those are all things that are being discussed right now. People are saying Trump isn't releasing these files because he's on them. I've heard that. I've seen people post that online and things like that he's not releasing them because he's involved. So who knows? I mean, like I said, anything is possible. But another thing that really has me saying that this is what the people believe it is, the so-called conspiracy theorists, this is what they believe it is because of that FBI deputy director. He is very angry right now. He is very angry with Pam Bondi. He's upset with Trump. So we have a clip. Let me see which clip this is. Because he's pissed. And he, it's kind of a situation where he's like, folks they're not being on the up and up. So that's the one, you can play it. Deputy FBI director tells allies he may resign over Epstein investigation.
Is it the last one, first one?
It's the second one, depending on how you receive them.
There is major turmoil inside the Justice Department tonight over the handling of files in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Sources tell ABC News there was a fiery confrontation between Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, and that Bongino has told allies he may resign. Here's ABC's Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, turmoil at the top levels of the Justice Department. Sources tell ABC News of a fiery confrontation between Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino and Attorney General Pam Bondi over the department's handling of the investigation into sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Sources tell us Bongino did not come to work today and has told allies he may resign. For years, Bongino, a former podcast host, and his boss, FBI Director Kash Patel, stoked conspiracy theories over Epstein's death, insisting shadowy forces within the government engaged in a massive cover-up.
Folks, you're going to see a lot of names on that. The Epstein client list, I believe, based on what I've heard from sources and the story I just told you, basically, is going to rock the political world. There's a reason they're hiding it.
Attorney General Bondi promised to deliver answers.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
But this week, DOJ released a memo saying there's actually no client list at all. Bondi asked to explain.
I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, It's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
DOJ also said Epstein did in fact die by suicide and that there was no credible evidence found that he blackmailed prominent individuals, and declared it would not be releasing any more information about the case. President Trump on Tuesday tried to change the subject.
People still talking about this.
I don't know. The deputy FBI director seems pretty furious with Pam Bondi and the way that the case was handled. So that's what has people like myself and others raising eyebrows, saying, okay, obviously there's something much more to this situation than what's being exposed and what's being talked about. And, you know, at the end of the day, I just feel like it's very difficult to come to terms with the fact that you're living among corrupt people, people that engage in all sorts of horrible crimes, and these people unfortunately are in the upper levels of our society. That's something that people just don't feel comfortable with, and rightfully so. But at the end of the day, I just feel like we really have to be realistic. Like I said, I don't foresee this being something that's going to be some grand conspiracy where you're going to start seeing these prominent people get arrested and exposed. It may happen 60 or 70 years from now, just like how they're releasing the Kennedy files and all these things like this. You know, the way I live my life is I really just focus on, you know, trying to ground myself in being able to produce the best life that I can for myself, because you can't really control every situation. Like, you can't. Hopefully the day will come, you know, where society, in my lifetime, this is something that I would like to see happen. I would like for there to be a switch in governance and, you know, the way the world runs. I would really like to see good-hearted, compassionate, fair, just people in charge. And, you know, that's what you would hope for, but unfortunately that's not the case at this time. And again, like I said, that's something that I'm hoping I will be able to witness and live in within my lifetime. You know, there's some things happening, and we may be able to live in a society like that, you know, hopefully sooner than later, where these people who are just so outright corrupt and don't really give a damn about the world at large, they'll lose their power. But again, right now, it's just very unfortunate that the way that things are governed and things like that, especially on these national levels, and even locally in some factions, you know, there's just people who are not of the highest moral caliber who are in charge of the governing process. And we're going to have to take control over our individual lives way more aggressively in this day and age, because, you know, for the most part, that is what you can control. You can control your day-to-day life. Sometimes I know it feels like you can't. Sometimes it feels like you're losing control of your life and things like that. But ultimately, you have the power to determine the outcome of your life. And I think that if we begin on an energetic and collective level to, use the ability that we have to control our own destiny as the people, we'll begin to see the world mold into what we want it to be. That is the only advice that I have, and that's my outlook on the world that we live in today. Because again, there is so much corruption going on. There are so many people engaging in things that are reprehensible. And if we collectively, if we individually, which will ultimately become collectively, take control of our own destiny, we will begin to see the world look a lot like what we want it to be. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do. What more can we do? But I do want to get into this last clip because some people were saying that this isn't going to end well for the Republican Party as a whole. Their base is going to ultimately end up, walking away, or this whole MAGA thing is going to be dismantled. But I just want to play a clip of, a few people, Trump supporters and Republicans and things like that, talking about this Epstein situation and how they feel about it.
Americans, not as Democrats, not as liberals, not as Republicans, are actually lining together and saying we all want the Epstein files. And I said, come on, Donald, give us those files.
We are here at the Turning Point USA Summit in Tampa, Florida. It is a big gathering of Trump supporters. And one thing everybody seems to be talking about here this weekend, Jeffrey Epstein.
We need to get to the bottom of Epstein because Epstein is the key that picks the lock.
Let me just ask you, make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
This is Turning Point USA's Student Action Summit. It's an event aimed at mobilizing young conservatives. Ultimately, how bad do you think it would be for the MAGA movement, for young people's trust in Trump, if by the end of his term they don't release everything they know about Epstein?
Well, I think that if they don't release the Epstein files, whatever J.D. Vance says then is irrelevant because it's like everybody's going to take it as like a lie because of what Donald Trump did. But I think J.D. Vance wants these files released as well. And I think that Donald Trump, he promised them, so he needs to do it. No matter who's on them, we need to release the Epstein files.
Because right now the whole debate's about Bongino versus Bondi, but ultimately it's Trump's decision, right? He has the power.
It's Trump's decision. It's Trump's decision. I think again, and I'm not going to make the decision for the president. It's not my job. It's not my place. But I do think the way that I'm seeing it played out is that Bongino will be here and Pam Bondi will be the fall guy.
You think that's fair?
I don't think anything's fair in politics. And this is the first topic that all of us as Americans, not as Democrats, not as liberals, not as Republicans, are actually lining together.
All right, so you've seen those clips of a few, MAGA, Republican, Trump supporting types saying they need to release the files. That's the general consensus of the people. They feel like it doesn't matter who's on the list. It just needs to be released. The people need to know the truth about what is going on. And, I'm not condemning anybody who feels that way. I'm not trying to patronize anyone. But again, like I said, I just don't foresee that happening. I think this is a situation that people are angry about, and they will, continue to make some noise about. But I don't feel like it's going to lead to Donald Trump budging and releasing those files. I do think that it will hurt the Republican Party to a degree. It may hurt J.D. Vance if he, had hopes of running for president, because like the young man was saying in the video, if it's not released, it's going to make it appear that everything J.D. Vance says was irrelevant, and, whatever he says is going to seem like a lie. So I don't know if this is going to be good for J.D. Vance or, the Republican Party in general, or anybody, who was staunch about saying that they would bring some transparency to this Epstein case. But again, what's going to be the outcome of this, in my opinion, is that it's going to be a situation that is unfortunately going to just leave a bunch of unanswered questions, and people are going to can just continue to be angry about it. I think we got a call coming in.
Yeah.
Caller, you're live.
Hey, this is Mia. I see that you're doing a live on basically should the Epstein files be released.
Yes.
Well, I think the thing is, I'm really trying to figure out who isn't an Epstein down here.
I mean, that is the broader conversation. This is something that I don't know if you saw the beginning of the show, but that is something that I was saying, this is bigger than just one man. This is a big problem. And, I feel like people need answers. And I feel like there's something that needs to be done on a larger scale about, the harming of children.
Absolutely. I think that, granted, my thoughts come from a scientific type of view because I've studied like science and different things. Because I was trying to figure out what connects all of us. Like, why is, you got black people that do this, but white people do this. But at the end of the day, I think everybody's doing probably the same things, just in a different style. And as far as with children, there's plenty of children on YouTube that have to do all these dances because they became famous and the parents became addicted to the money. There's parents that tell their children, hey, don't talk too much because I need this guy to pay my rent. There's women that don't let their children see their father because of what he did to me. So I'm like, who isn't an Epstein?
Yeah, but we don't want the people that's governing our society to be the Epsteins. We need some sort of, balance within society. Everything can't just be this big ball of corruption. And that's another thing that I was speaking on. I'm hoping in my lifetime that we will begin to see the world that I believe that we all want to live in. We don't want to live in a society where the people that are governing our countries and things like that are no better than the everyday criminal, because where's the balance in that? What type of society do you have if everything is just corrupt to the core and there's nobody in any type of positions of power that are doing anything about the corruption in society? So yeah, who isn't an Epstein? But at the same time, I feel like the people that are in charge, we can't hold them to the same standard. They need to do better.
I think that's the problem. People look to these world leaders as their God unconsciously. I don't look to Trump. I don't look to anybody as they're going to have a direct input. I guess they can make things that affect people, but the general public is the one who really holds a lot of authority. And I guess they don't realize that. They feel like they have to go out there, yell and scream and say, release these files. But at the end of the day, is your mother Epstein? Is your father Epstein? Is your uncle? Is the person at that grocery store? And I think that everyone's looking for somebody specifically to blame. I don't think that Trump should not be held accountable, but I just think it's a broader issue. Who is not an Epstein? And to look for one specific person as, if we could take this person out, it'll stop. It seems like it's been going on since the beginning of time, so for some reason, Epsteins keep being recreated.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, but my whole point about it is who's going to step up to the plate and be courageous enough to actually do something about it. The general public, like you said, does amass more power than they believe they have. And that's why I said people need to start taking control of their own personal journeys. And we will begin to see the world that we want to see. I don't put a lot of, I don't hold these world leaders and things like that up to any type of godlike demeanor or anything like that. But I mean, if we are going to put you in a position, then you should have the decency to serve the people with some sort of dignity. That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, I can completely understand that point because it's always been like that since the beginning of the time. And I just think that I'll go ahead and give it to Black Americans. They're not thinking at a higher consciousness. They're busy running around talking about the color of our skin and we're superior. And Black Americans' voice holds so strong that we have people in Israel dancing to the music. And I'm just like, so who is going to say something to really shift the world? But from what I see is people are just busy saying, look at this person, look at that person, they did this. Everyone's busy pointing out what each other is doing wrong. And I'm just like, well, who's going to decide to do something right? And what does right look like other than figuring out who we should hang?
I mean, I don't know. But like I said, I'm hoping in my lifetime that we can figure it out and the world can begin to mold into what I think that we all want. I think that we all want peace. I think we all want, happiness and things like that. And we all just have to continue to work toward that in the best way that we know how. But do you have any final thoughts?
I think my final thought is people need to be careful when they come for Trump, because what I noticed is when those Epstein files kept getting mentioned, all of a sudden something happened in Texas. And I think that people feel like, let's keep trying to nail him. And the thing about Trump is not going to go down unless a lot of people are going down with him. And I think that people maybe should take some time to self-reflect on what can I change in my environment and what I have control over, because I'm going after a pretty big guy that's in a powerful position that can literally affect the world.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much for your call.
Thank you.
Good night. All right, well, there you have it. I mean, her final thought was similar to what I was saying. We got to take some type of control over our own personal lives. We can't put too much faith into these people. And I do feel like I said, if we on an individual level begin to start living our lives in a way that we want to see the world, then collectively we'll be able to begin to mold this world into what we want it to be. And that's my final thoughts on it. You got anything else?
No. No expectations, no disappointments.
All right, well, there you have it. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We will be back here same time, same place, God willing, next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m., right here on 2rawfortv.tv. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have a good night.